In 1987, I built a large wall clock for my mom and dad. The other day, my mom phoned me and said that while she was trying to wind it up, it all of a sudden made a big bang, and now she can't wind it. When I had built that clock, I'd put in a good quality mechanical movement from Hermley. I thought, oh boy, the mainspring's broken. Once I got the clock apart, it was obvious that it wasn't the mainspring. It was the ratchet winding system. As you can see here, there's a little flat spring which pushes up on the dog, which engages in the teeth in the ratchet mechanism, which prevents the spring from turning backwards as you're winding it. Now, I don't know how this happened, but somehow the little flat spring came off the bottom of the dog, which allowed the dog to drop down and no longer catch in the teeth. Now, of course, what's happening is as you're turning the key won't lock into place and you can't wind it up. You can't wind the spring tight. I had brought along with me a quartz battery movement that I got from Craft Time Clockery in Ontario. And this was a nice little movement. It plays the Westminster chime. It plays the Ave Maria melody. It also has the bim bam gong chime, I guess you'd call it. I suggested to Mom that perhaps she would like to have something different. So I installed this in her large wall case there. And as you'll hear from the next clip, it sounds pretty nice. The only thing is the pendulum is way too small. To make things a little easier to understand, you have to appreciate the fact that I live in Winnipeg and my mother lives in Kelowna, and that's like 1,200 miles apart, or 2,000 kilometers if you're Canadian. When I got back home to Winnipeg, I got some scrap lumber together and I found a pretty nice piece of spruce that I thought had some unusual grain in it, and I thought this might make a very nice Pendulum Bob. So I went to work on it. My thought was to try and center the Pendulum Bob so that I could take advantage of this unusual grain. You'll notice it's got this dark brown streak down both sides of the center of the grain there, and I thought this might look kind of nice if I turn it just right. Well, I know that the next few video clips are going to be rather boring, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to say, well, I could have done a better job and you're holding the tool all wrong, and you know what, they'd be right, but I don't care. I was having a good time. I got this lathe from the Canadian woodworker here in Winnipeg, and up until just a few weeks ago I had never had a turning chisel in my hand. So this was a new experience. It was pretty much one of my first projects here, and everything is sort of going at it by trial and error. So I was hoping that it was going to turn out okay and not come flying all apart. I just used a scraper here to turn down the face of the bob. I wasn't too worried about what the back of it was going to look like because no one was going to see it anyway. It was going to be towards the back of the clock, but I did try to do a good job on the front. I had a small, lightweight, brass-colored pendulum disc. I know I've been referring to this as a bob, but more accurately, maybe I should have been calling it a disc. And I thought it would look kind of nice if it would somehow could be inserted in the center of the wooden disc that I was making here. And so I hollowed out an area just the right size so that it could be inserted in it. And as you'll see, it turned out quite nice. The original pendulum is still back in Kelowna, but I had measured it before I left so that I would know how long to make the pendulum rod. I didn't want the pendulum rod to look like a square piece of lumber just hanging down holding up the pendulum disc. I wanted the face of it to be a little bit contoured, so I put it through a shaper here. This shaper could turn out to be a real painful experience if you got your fingers in the wrong place. Anyway, after trimming the rod down on the table saw, it was time to give it some varathane, put some shine on it. They say that there's nothing more boring than watching paint dry. Well, the next most boring thing is probably watching the painter put the paint on. Well, here's the pendulum disc pretty well finished. Once I get to Kelowna and get it installed back in the clock, I'll update this video and show how it looks.